welcome along to the live stream. And if you're rewatching from later on, maybe just tune in a little earlier next time, between 9 and 10. It's when we do this live each Friday. Going through the news that Aotearoa has been searching for. If you're not familiar with what that means, well, did you know you can find out via the algorithms these days what news stories people are more interested in. We're talking about Google searches. We're even talking about the most popular stories on your major news services. So that's really what this is about. We're going to spend a bit of time together going through those stories. And so if you join us, though, on the pre-show, it's a bit of a chance to connect ahead of time, say hello, and interact with the rest of the trending community before we dive into those stories. And fair to say, Josh, this is going to be quite the show.
Yeah, this one.
Oh, wait, you're on this side. Carry on, as you were.
This one in particular is going, we talk about, before we get into trending normally, light and shade.
Boy, do we.
And that is the nature of the show.
It's the nature of life, mate.
Well, that's very good. That's a very good point. So, you know, trending is looking at the trending news stories from over the week. So we don't just handpick these stories. It is dictated by the stories that people wanted to know more information about. And lo and behold, I think it won't be that shocking to people, but some big news stories dominating in the trending results and, bringing a little bit more darkness than light today. But that's okay.
That's okay. We're going to talk about that anyway. So usually we keep our number one stories up our sleeves till the end. But I'll tell you now, if you joined us on the stream, that yes, Charlie Kirk is the number one news story in the country. Though the second story is Tom Phillips. Neither of those stories, if you know much about them, are particularly cheery. But we're going to talk about them today because, I mean, as I said to you, Josh, at the start, this is life. In some ways, going through the stories that we've got here today really does paint that picture for me because we've got some celebrations of good things that are in there. We've got some of the more unusual. And then, of course, these reminders too that we live in a fallen world that is full of tragedy and pain. And we've hurt people. And then there is even just a force for evil out there that we need to be aware of. We can't be naive about. We're going to talk about all of that today. So if you've got thoughts on, well, Charlie Kirk or even Tom Phillips in particular that you want to send through, you can get a jump on things and send those through to us, 8168 with the first word REMA on the text, or jump in the chat.
That's right, the chat, if you're watching now, which is the only way you can actually be a part of trending at the moment. So this is the exclusive clue, the VIPs. It is quite uncharacteristic, Andrew, that we would give away the top two stories right at the top of trending, but a little bit different today due to the nature of the show. So yes, if you've got any thoughts already about Tom Phillips, about Charlie Kirk, you are welcome to leave a comment below. And of course, we will have our listening audience a little while later. This is the pre-show of trending, taking a look at the trending stories of the week that was here on REMA. Also, of course, online, YouTube and Facebook.
What was it like for you reading all the stuff in the last day or so?
Okay, so I can't deny I knew about Tom Phillips. I knew that story and how wide-reaching that had become. Charlie Kirk, this is the first time I've encountered this man because of the story.
Really?
I actually did not know who he was up until he was suddenly trending. Why is he trending? Oh, dear. And all the new news to unpack and discover.
You've actually done pretty well, to be honest. It says to me you're not excessively online because one of the things that I know I want to talk about in regards to this is that this is American news. And I know there are a lot of New Zealanders who are feeling this very strongly. There were people in, say, my wider friendship circle. You know, the Instagram stories were replete with Charlie Kirk-related posts. Also because, if you're not familiar, yes, he was a political commentator, activist. He had created an organization called Turning Point USA that was particularly involved in mobilizing young people and young conservatives in the US. So yes, there was a political dimension, but also he was very faith forward, often talking about the fact that really talking about Jesus was what he thought the number one thing was. And then his work was really maintaining the ability for him to do the number one thing. So the number two thing, maintaining things like free speech and the civil society that America was founded on the principles of, was still around so that he could then, talk about Jesus in these places. So I think that's why a lot of people saw him as a champion for the faith, even though, again, the American context is one that I wrestle with. I don't know how you feel about this, but importing a lot of the cultural baggage, I think, that comes from faith and political discussions in the US and New Zealand, I often have mixed feelings about. On the one hand, I wish we were able to have those kind of faith conversations a little more commonplace. you're not going to see a lot of those, change my mind kind of debate stations outside any universities in New Zealand. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't like the fact that a lot of this stuff turns into adversarial online content, no matter what your political stripes are. At the same time, though, if somebody is prepared to go into these places and at least engage in conversation with people who disagree with them, that I think is a great thing. It beats the alternative, because what happened yesterday is the alternative when those conversations no longer happen. So, yeah, I don't know if we'll come to any definitive ideas on how we respond specifically to Charlie Kirk, but what I do want to talk about is more about how we respond here in New Zealand and what are the principles that maybe we can apply, particularly as a faith community. So that'll be, I don't know, interesting to see how that develops, and interesting to hear your thoughts on that too as the show marches along. So yeah, I don't know. Let us know if there's something that's come to mind for you on that topic.
Yeah, we can see there are a few people already joining us on the stream. You're here for the pre-show of Trending, just before we get into the show proper. These are the trending news stories from the week that was, and a little bit uncharacteristically, we've given you the top news story, the top trending story from the week that was. It's kind of obvious, Charlie Kirk, and we're front-footing it, saying, hey, if you want to get in touch now, if you want to talk about this, if you've got a thought, an opinion, you're welcome to leave it as a comment below. We love you engaging with the show. This is a rare and unique element of a radio show that we really love, a way to engage with you, to be seen by you, and to hear your thoughts. This show is built on connecting with you, not just the trending stories, but also looking at what people wanted that more information about. So if you've got any thoughts at all, feel free to leave a comment. There are already a few people jumping in, Andrew, as we chat right now.
Fantastic. So yeah, let us know your thoughts on Charlie Kirk or Tom Phillips, or, well, really anything else as well. And let me say too, life also goes on. I don't mean that in a dismissive way, just that is the reality of things, good and bad, happening throughout the course of this week as well. So, we even had Father's Day as well, just quietly. We might have some Father's Day related stuff. And it was even my anniversary this week. So I've actually got anniversary dinner plans later on tonight as well.
Yeah,
life goes on.
Congratulations.
Thanks, mate. 5 years of wedded bliss and all that. I was...
5 years already?
Crazy, eh?
Man, it is crazy.
And we're still just like newlyweds. Aw.
You kiddies.
You cutie pies. I will say this, and I think I'd kind of figured this out before Aki and I had even got married, but you don't want to let people project their dysfunction on you when you're talking about marriage. And there's a lot of people who, boy, howdy, when they want to give you advice about something. Did you get this? Have you heard this from people? They're like, oh, well, we've been married as long as we have, or blah, blah, blah. And these assumptions that maybe you'd be, at each other's throats about things, or having big barneys about all sorts of stuff.
I mean, yeah, I think I always took any piece of marriage advice as the intent behind the person
that's good. Yeah.
is nice, but you also do take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because you're just all different. And the way you experience and do marriage, there will be obviously some crossover. There will be some key elements that you do need to get right. But there will be also unique ways that your marriage exists, so different to anybody else.
It's funny because I've had this conversation before with Aki that I've looked at some other people's marriages and be like, I wouldn't want a marriage like that. Not that it's even necessarily bad. It's just
different.
It's got a different vibe. And you go, but you know what? That's fine. That's fine. They can have their marriage. We'll have ours, and ours can just be the best one.
It's not a competition, Andrew.
But if it was, we'd win.
Hey, noticing, by the way, a few more people jumping in on the stream. Numbers are picking up, particularly on the YouTube stream. So welcome on in if you've just joined us. If you're here and you're new, welcome. This is Trending. So we're taking a look back at the week that was in terms of the trending news stories. What stories did people want more information about? What did they go to Google and want more info on? We're about to get into the show proper. We have been saying that the number one story, which is rare for us, we don't usually reveal that until the end of the show, is Charlie Kirk. If you've got any thoughts or opinions, you're welcome to leave them as a comment below on the stream. A lot to unpack today, Andrew.
I'd love to see how people responded to this as well. When you heard the news, did it mean much to you? And Josh, you were saying earlier on, as somebody who probably wisely doesn't follow a lot of the American political circuit, this wasn't somebody that you were very familiar with.
Yeah, well, it took me quite by surprise as to how important this moment was when you don't know about somebody, and then, of course, this tragic moment does unfold. It's a tragedy regardless. But then obviously, okay, why are so many eyes on this?
Yeah.
What is the story? And then just being brought into this world, it's been fascinating.
Yeah, really has, eh? And so how do we live in New Zealand? This is going to be the thing that I want to unpack throughout the course of the show, because this story is a little far removed from us, but there are some universal principles and all this kind of thing too. And I think some of the real challenges in our faith community too at moments like this. More importantly, the Bible talks about don't repay evil for evil, but overcome evil with good. And we read that and we go, wow, okay, yeah, cool. And just, right, gotcha, evil with good. All right, well, here you go. Boy, if you ever wanted to have a rubber meets the road occasion with your faith, the natural impulse for some kind of retribution is so strong. It's so strong, isn't it? And especially an evil of this note, because it is an evil. What do we do about this? How do we process this? And then come back to New Zealand and think, how do we then feel about those who have different political stripes that we do? And when we are hurt by them, how do we respond? In some ways, it's an evergreen question, but we'll see. We'll see what kind of comes of all of that. And all sorts of other stuff as well in between. As I said, there's Father's Day related stuff in there. What else can we talk about? Even little bit of astronomy. A little bit of astronomy today.
Oh, yes, a little bit of astronomy. I, for a moment, was confused, but yes, you're right.
You never want to mix up astronomy and astrology, do you? Because if you reference astrology, people get all sorts of upset. But there will be no horoscopes in today's show, don't you worry.
This phenomena that we'll get into later in the show.
Yep.
What is it about it? We go bonkers. I don't wish to be cynical, but I thought it was a rare occurrence. But it seems to me that it happens every other day.
Every 10 minutes. I couldn't agree more. Is it just a function of our modern internet-driven society that people found out, oh, if I mention said phenomenon, I get a bunch of clicks out of it?
Yep.
Boy.
I can post my really poor photo.
Yeah.
Blurry and
grainy. Take it on a phone. It's like, it's up there. And people are like, great. Thanks very much.
How many people have figured out what we are going to be talking about a little bit later in Trending? Another trending news story. More on that to come. If you've already figured it out, well done.
Well done to you. Oh, I feel like a game show. You know what I've been watching lately? I think you inspired me to do this. Was Pointless.
Oh, Pointless.
Yeah, because it's got the guy who we reviewed his movie.
Yes.
Richard something? Olsen?
It is Richard something. Osmond. Richard Osmond.
That's not bad. I'll give myself a 6 out of 10 for that. He also hosts a show called Pointless, which is on, I think, the BBC or whatever. I always love, by the way, how low budget the prizes are on UK game shows. That it's like you compare to the US and it's like, and you'll win just for turning up, you win $10,000. And then on like these BBC shows, they're like, and now we've increased the prize pool by $250.
Yeah, but also the game shows in the UK are more. It's not your Deal or No Deal, is it?
No, it's not.
No offense to Deal or No Deal, but
production
it's
value much lower.
Yeah.
All right, hey, we're about to join the rest of the radio community. Stick around and let's discover these trending news stories for the week that was. And those words are out of Isaiah chapter 30, verse 18.
Live on air and online. Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Aotearoa, welcome to Trending. If it's your first time around here, come on in, get comfy. We're about to take a look at the news stories that Kiwis have been searching for this week. Quite literally, going into Google, putting in a name, putting in a place, putting in an event, and finding out what's going on. Because there's often a difference, isn't there, between the stories that maybe you and your friends are talking about versus what might lead your nightly news stories or might be on the front pages of your major news services around the world. So that's what motivates us to do this show. First and foremost, to find out what's interesting to other Kiwis. Maybe Kiwis just like you, maybe Kiwis who are nothing like you. But then also to be a part of a community where we can talk about this kind of stuff together. And that is where the live stream comes in. So if you are listening on the radio, maybe you want to take your trending experience to a whole new level, and to tell you how to do that, welcome back, Josh Beatty.
It's good to be back, Andrew. Yes, a lot to unpack today. And as Andrew was saying, there is a unique difference of this show. You can listen as you are, the traditional way, via your radio. But if you would like to be a part of the viewing experience, if you'd like to leave a comment, you can text 8168, keyword REMA, but head to rema.co.nz, find the Facebook or YouTube links, and you can find the live stream. You can see us. You can see the studio in all its beautiful, shining glory as the sun is streaming in through the big windows, and we would love for you to be a part of the experience that way. So join us, rema.co.nz, Facebook or YouTube links.
Join us on the live stream, and if you are listening, of course, via the radio, hey, there's a place for you as well. Thank you for being a part of this show today. We're going to do something a little bit different today, because usually we march through our search terms, the ones that were the most popular, the least popular, through to the most popular at the end of the show. But today we are going to do something a little bit different. Today, I'm going to tell you the story that was the number one, because I think for most who have tuned in today, you've been able to guess what that story might be, and that is the one regarding Charlie Kirk. The assassination of Charlie Kirk and the absolute tragedy that is, not just for his family, for what it might represent in the United States right now. And so we want to talk about that at the very beginning and give you a chance to send through your thoughts on this. How did you react? What do you think about this Charlie Kirk story? For those who are unfamiliar, Charlie is a part of Turning Point USA. It's an organization that he started to mobilize conservative young people to get out there and vote, to promote conservative values, especially on university campuses. And so something Charlie came very well known for was to set up these debating stations where he would have a conversation with anybody about what it meant to be an American, what it meant to live by American values, but also biblical values. He was a very proud Christian. In fact, there are quotes where he talked about that his number one job was really to talk about Jesus. And so his number two job, protecting things like the First Amendment, the right to free speech, was really so that he could preserve his right to do his first job, talking about Jesus. And so faith and politics, often a bit of an overlap in the US that can make some people in New Zealand and other parts of the world a little more uncomfortable. But nevertheless, there he was, willing to have a conversation with anybody who would sit down and have a chat to him, something that I always found very admirable, regardless of how I felt about different opinions that he might have raised. And of course, remembering that the American template doesn't always perfectly match onto New Zealand. We're going to talk about it in more detail by the time we get to the end of the show, and maybe reflect on what this might mean for us. But just to front foot this as well, and give you an opportunity to share your thoughts today. That is what this show is all about. And so that's where we're going to begin things, just by extending the invitation. You can text us through this morning, 8168 with the first word REMA, or maybe leave a comment in the stream and just let us know how you responded to the news about Charlie Kirk's assassination. And so feel free, if you want to do that, of course, if you want to join the live stream and maybe chat with our other viewers, the other members of the trending community, you can do that today by first up heading to the REMA website.
Yeah, rema.co.nz. Super simple, rema.co.nz. Once you're there, click on either the Facebook or YouTube link for the live stream. A key difference of trending is that we are live streamed. We would love for you to get involved, and that means, sharing your opinion, telling us what you think. If you've got any thoughts on our number one trending news story, we don't normally do this. We don't give away number one right at the beginning of the show, but today, obviously, a marked difference. If you've got a thought, 8168 keyword REMA, as Andrew said, or on the stream, leave that comment below.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
So let's then start with the bottom of our ranked stories today, coming in at number 25. And I suppose, too, even as it does relate to our number one story, which we've just shared with you, of course, Charlie Kirk, it's a reminder, too, that life goes on around the world, and there's a lot of light and shade in this story. It's often a bit of a challenge, can I say, in the preparation for today, too. We thought about, gosh, how do we talk about this stuff today? Because on the one hand, I mean, incredible tragedy, incredibly serious, but also within the stories we're going to cover today, some of them international, others maybe a little bit lighter. That is the full picture of life.
Well, yeah, this is the full gambit of, again, these are the stories that people went looking for more information about, Andrew.
Yeah.
So it does say a little bit about us here in New Zealand, as we take an interest not only in stories that are local to us, specific to New Zealand, but obviously stories from abroad, specifically for this story, traveling to Poland.
And what's going on with NATO? Donald Trump and stating, here we go. Goodness me. Apparently Russia has been violating Poland's airspace with drones. And so Trump asked in a short post on Truth Social, what's going on? Here we go. Now, what is he talking about when he says, here we go? The thing about Poland that's very distinct from, say, Ukraine is that Poland is a member of NATO, which is kind of a big part of this Ukraine discussion as well. Russia very keen to make sure that Ukraine doesn't join because there's such a thing as Article 5.
Oh, no, not Article 5.
It's kind of like Article 4, but it's one later. Not to be confused with Article 6.
Oh, yes.
Which is, in fact, a different one again.
It comes between 4 and 6, doesn't it?
That's correct. Yeah. So Article 5, this one. It's really just the article that states that an attack on one is seen as an attack on all. So, again, you can understand why Russia wouldn't be too keen for Ukraine to join this because it's one thing to attack Ukraine. It would be another thing to attack all of Europe and the US as well. Of course, Poland, nearby to Ukraine, has suffered a few incursions of Russian drones. And so, Article 5 being activated, what does this mean?
Does it mean, and is this why Poland was the number 25 search term over the week that was? People are going to Google and searching Poland, what's going on? Is the extreme end of this the worry about World War III?
I mean, yes, is the short answer, isn't it? It's been a strange situation because on the one hand, there are some echoes of World War II at the risk of really stirring the pot on this one because people were very concerned at the start of, 1938, 39. Let's not do anything that antagonizes Hitler because the last thing that we want is to revoke
World War II.
World War II. Spoiler alert, it happened anyway.
Yeah, so when you just give the bully what he wants,
right,
he just keeps asking for what he wants and you keep giving it to him.
Now, the big concern, of course, if you haven't really followed along with this and the arguments against escalation have been that, Russia has nuclear weapons, which were not a thing back in Hitler's day. So that changes up the gamut completely. However, will Putin ever stop unless he is up against firm resistance? Doesn't appear to be so. So Trump has said in this article from CNN that we're now showing on our live stream, but I'll read for those of you who are listening along at home, that he's becoming increasingly frustrated with Putin and he's ready to apply some new sanctions on Moscow, but it doesn't look like there's going to be any military action specifically. The Polish president, Karol Nawrocki, has said in a statement that today's talks with Donald Trump confirmed allied unity. But as of right now, that doesn't mean there's going to be any military strikes specifically on Russia. Good news, I suppose?
Yeah, I suppose so. It's on the one hand, and look, as soon as you invoke the Nazis, you lose the argument, right?
Godwin's law. Look it up. It's a thing.
So, as we liken it to the beginning of World War II and just allowing the bully to have what he wants, we saw how that went. Then again, I don't think we're ever hoping for, praying for, military action and war. And, so it's a rock and a hard place for sure.
Well, in some ways, it connects a lot of our stories today as well because it wrestles with the true nature of human nature. What are we really like? What would we like to believe we are like versus who we are really? And I think one of those things is this idea of provocation. And Putin has used this a fair bit. And as you're going to see in some of our other stories, that's a thread that runs through these. Well, this person's only doing this because X, Y, Z. The assumption being that, deep down, we're actually all just nice, peaceful, kind, and gentle individuals who'd leave others alone if we were just left alone ourselves. It's unfortunately, from my perspective, and you can let me know if you disagree on this one today, it's not what I see. It's not what I see in human nature, all the way down from saying small children to adults to world leaders. It's just not how we are. There is something in us that is very selfishly driven, looks to take for our own, is very wrathful on our own behalf, and very unforgiving of others. And so we see it here. We see it in, of course, some of the other stories we're going to be discussing later on today. It's the nature of humanity that we just don't want to acknowledge as real.
Do feel free to get in touch, by the way, if you have any thoughts on this story. 8168 with the keyword REMA. That is how you text. Or, of course, if you're watching the stream, which you can find at rema.co.nz, click on either Facebook or YouTube, and you can watch along with the show, leaving a comment below, just to add some light to the shade, completely off topic. But if I just go back to the article and just leave it where it is right now, we're just looking at your targeted ads.
Yeah, come on.
Because recently...
Got to get the gains, baby.
You recently bought a workout bench, and I noticed as you're scrolling through, it's like, Google's picked up on that.
Boy, have they... The annoying thing is, I've said this many times, you know what Google needs? is a "I have purchased this, leave me alone" button. Because if you look at the screen, this show is not sponsored, though Flex Fitness Equipment, if you do want to get in behind trending, we can make it happen. You can see the workout bench that is one from the left, the kind of angled one there.
Yep.
That's the one that I bought. So I have bought that. It's on its way to me now. It's being shipped. So you can leave me alone.
But do you want another one?
Mate, you know what's better than one workout bench? 2 workout benches.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Oh, got to get them gains this morning. Let's change tack now to the number 20 trending news story. A tinge of sadness about this one, Josh.
A tinge of sadness?
Tinge of sadness for me that it's only in at number 20.
Oh, right.
Father's Day New Zealand.
Well, sometimes I wonder, because we see Father's Day, we see Mother's Day
Yep.
usually pop up in the trending results when we do the show, if it's been in recent memory, in the last week.
Yep.
And sometimes I wonder, is the reason it's popping up because people don't know what day it is? And so maybe actually it being lower down the list
Oh, I love it.
is
I love it. I see where you're going.
a better thing.
Yes.
Because more people were aware. Oh, they didn't need to go to Google and be like, what day is Father's Day?
No, because we all know that one, don't
Yeah,
we?
Sunday.
Yeah, it's Sunday.
Sunday.
It's Father's Day? It's
Father's
Sunday.
Day.
Yeah, Father's Day, Sunday.
But yeah, so number 20 trending in New Zealand over the week that was in terms of the Google search results, Father's Day NZ.
Now, this, by the way, tracks back to about Thursday of last week. So this is in the build-up to the big day, which was on Sunday. That's when Father's Day is. So kind of surprising. Only number 20. However, one story that we thought was kind of cute we had to run with. This was what turned up on stuff.co.nz. Christopher Luxon, our Prime Minister, talking about the best job in the world.
Oh.
I do like that kind of thing.
Running the country.
That's right. Oh, no, wait, no. Well, technically, if you're running the country, you are running your family as well. Like,
That's a very good point.
but no, do you think you would ever do this, by the way? Christopher Luxon, and if you join us on the stream right now, you'll see an example of this photo, posted a old family photo, and it certainly is a photo of a certain era. The old leaning on a bench thing with the family. I don't know. How would you describe this pose, Josh?
I describe it as posed.
Well, it is posed.
Yeah.
Yeah, as most photos tend to be.
Well,
What, you have candid family photos around your place? Candid wedding photos? I've been to your wedding. Don't you dare.
No, I didn't say
lie
candid
to
wedding
me.
photos.
Don't lie to me about these candid photos of yours that don't exist.
No. But this is more like we went to like a little studio. The whole background is white.
The old Pixie photo.
Yeah,
Do you remember the Pixie photo
That's
studios?
what I'm saying.
Yep, that's it. He shouldn't be wearing a white shirt, though. That was a bit of a mistake.
He is a bit.
It's just a head floating in space.
He is blurring a little bit into the background.
Well, he's also got a fairly pale complexion, and
I wasn't going to say it, but yeah.
and he was losing the follicular battle fairly early on
He
in life.
accepted. We could see in the next photo
Yep.
that he accepted that
That's right.
reality.
Yep. And so, nevertheless, there is a photo of Chris Luxon with his kids, and so he's decided, let's recreate the photo. And so now, again, if you join us on stream, let's also just shout out Amanda, who looks in better shape and possibly younger than she did in the original photo.
It's a feat not many can pull off.
The guns seen around the world, this woman. I mean, look at that shoulder definition right there. Look at that. Look at the bicep. She's even got the bicep vein. Like,
This isn't the first time her physique, in terms of like how strong she looks,
mate, she is.
has been mentioned.
She's ripped, man. She is ripped to shreds, that woman, in the best possible way. So
I don't really know what to say about that.
just smile and nod. That's fine. That does the job. But no, he has recreated the family photo. And so there he is with his smiling children. Okay, here we go. Here's the real potentially controversial question today. Is it just me, or are there more redheads around these days?
That's a controversial question.
Well, I don't know. Would people agree with this? Just, am I just noticing more redheads, or have I just fallen into redhead New Zealand somehow? Couples who, I mean, in the case of, we can't really tell what Chris Luxon's hair color was originally. But Amanda's obviously a dark brown, but both of his children, very striking red hair.
Yeah.
I don't know. Has anyone else noticed this? It's just I don't know. I just seem to feel like a higher proportion of friends of mine have red-headed children than I've ever seen before.
Well, I just don't know if I can comment because I married a vivid redhead.
You surely did.
Like her hair iconic, beautiful.
Yeah.
But
As she is just, inside and out, Josh.
100%. I was
right.
just specifically commenting on my wife's wonderful hair.
That's right. No, that's right. I was just kind of, supporting this,
Right.
description of, some would say, the second most incredible woman in the world.
Yes, indeed. I think it would be a little bit worrying to me if you did describe her as the most wonderful woman in the world.
So, I don't know, have you noticed this? Are there more redheads in your family right now? Are you the spontaneous redhead? Suddenly just a redhead pops out and everyone's like, wait, what? Where did this come from? Maybe there's something in the water. Is it all the fluoride? Maybe RFK Jr. was onto something. I don't know.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Hey, just before we move on, and sorry to interrupt, Andrew, but we did receive a message from Joel,
Yep.
about the Charlie Kirk situation. We'll probably leave that till we actually get to the story, but thank you, Joel, for your message. We have seen that. We are going to get to that story. It is the #1 trending story for the week. Again, we don't typically let you know what the #1 story is, but today it is a marked difference for a obvious reason. If you've got any thoughts on the situation, you are welcome to text on through right now, 8168 with the keyword Rima, or if you're watching on the stream, leave a comment below. If you want to find the stream, rima.co.nz, click on either Facebook or YouTube.
Yes, Charlie Kirk, the #1 ranked news story in the country, even though, of course, it only happened yesterday. A massive surge in searches, people trying to find out what was going on. Of course, when the story first broke, we just knew that he had been shot. And then, of course, tragically, not too long after that, it was confirmed that Charlie had passed away at the age of 31. And so, what was your response to this story? Do you have thoughts on it? How should we respond in New Zealand? We will talk about that towards the end of the show and make sure we allocate some space to just discussing what is the #1 story in the country. For now, let's continue to march through the other stories, of course, that are fighting for our attention over the course of the week. Number 18 was certainly news on me. The Duchess of Kent.
Yeah, tragically, the Duchess of Kent passing. Good news is, I suppose, 92 years old. So she certainly had a long...
Pretty good innings, as
Yeah,
my
exactly.
folks would say. Pretty good innings.
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah, Duchess of Kent, however, the number 18 trending story over the week that was. This is trending, so looking back at those stories that Kiwis wanted more information about and having a look at what we were talking about around the quote-unquote water cooler. Number 18, the Duchess of Kent.
Let's see how the BBC covered it.
We're going to take a break from the political news now because let me show you the outside of Buckingham Palace where the flag is lowered as it's been announced that the Duchess of Kent, the cousin of Queen Elizabeth and wife of the Duke of Kent, has died. She was 92. The Duchess of Kent has died. That news has been released there from the royal family. Daniela Ralph, our senior royal correspondent, is with me here in the studio. Daniela, just tell us more about the Duchess of Kent.
Yes, Geeta, the pictures there of the flag flying at half-mast is a marker for us to know that the royal family will now be in a period of official mourning. That announcement from Buckingham Palace has come within the past hour. Perhaps the best thing is for me to read out what the palace have said. They say that it is with deep sorrow that Buckingham Palace announces the death of Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Kent. Her Royal Highness passed away peacefully last night at Kensington Palace, surrounded by her family. The King and Queen and all members of the royal family join the Duke of Kent, his children and grandchildren in mourning their loss and remembering fondly the Duchess's lifelong devotion to all the organisations with which she was associated, her passion for music and her empathy for young people. She had been unwell for some time and we had not seen her in any way in public life for a number of years in any significant way. But it is a day of great sadness for the royal family. And I think many people watching will remember perhaps the Duchess of Kent as the person who handed out the trophies at Wimbledon. If you were a watcher of Wimbledon during the 80s and 90s in particular, she was somebody who would hand over the trophies. And there was that moment in 1993 that many will remember when the losing women's finalist Jana Novotná was incredibly distressed and upset, as we can see here. And the Duchess was very empathetic, hugged her when she was in floods of tears there and deeply upset. And it was a moment, I think, where it was obvious that there was a real empathy in terms of the public engagement that the Duchess of Kent carried out. She had a tenderness and an empathy to her that made her very memorable in some people's minds. She herself had quite an interesting life in terms of the royal family. She was an outsider who married in. She was from an aristocratic landowning Yorkshire family, and at first found royal life, it seemed very easy. She had these causes that she was very much attached to around helping young people, working with the Samaritans. But she herself had some personal issues. She suffered from depression. She had a stillborn baby. And after a while, she stepped back from royal life and royal duty and instead trained as a music teacher. And she taught in state schools in music in London and Hull, where she was known quite simply as Catherine Kent. So it's an interesting trajectory for her throughout the royal family, but a day of great sadness for them. She was also a convert to Catholicism. The first time a member of the royal family had done that in 300 years. So I think we can perhaps expect her funeral, which will be attended by most senior members of the royal family, to be a Catholic mass.
So that is the story, the Duchess of Kent passing away at the age of 92, and quite a cool story, though, that I wasn't aware of with her. Yeah, breaking away from royal family duties to just teach music in a public school, and then just going by Catherine Kent.
Catherine Kent. Sounds like a superhero.
Doesn't it, a little bit?
It really does. The alliteration.
How do we feel about the royal family in 2025? Is this too much of a hardball question coming out of a story like that?
If you're asking me.
Yep, and I am.
Indifferent.
Yeah.
Tragic to hear.
Yep.
She had a wonderful life.
Yep.
Sad to hear of her passing. Really awesome to hear of all the good work that she did. The work with Samaritans.
It's remarkable to me how much people want to see that people in the aristocracy are just like us.
Yes.
Like, these are the stories that we always want. We always want to hear somebody who was the Duchess of whatever, the Duke of whoever, but they were just like us. So I'm thinking...
Even you. You could be the next Duchess of Kent.
Please, Lord. It'd be quite the miracle at this point.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
We're continuing to march through our news stories today, and as well, just letting you know ahead of time that our number one news story will be covering Charlie Kirk. He is the number one story, even though this tragedy only broke yesterday. And so you've got some time. If you want to reflect on it and send through your messages ahead of time, we do want to hear from you this morning.
Get in touch, 8168 with the keyword REMA, just like Joel did. Thank you, Joel, for your message. Also, of course, if you are watching the stream, you can leave a comment below. If you'd like to watch the stream, if you're like, wait a minute, this is a radio show, what do you mean I can watch? Head to rema.co.nz. A marked difference of this show is that it is live streamed. You can see the moving pictures. I know. Woohoo! We're living in the future. No, but we would love for you to be a part of it. It's a different way to engage with us, and we do want your comment. So leave a comment below if you're on the stream, rema.co.nz, Facebook or YouTube, or of course, text 8168, keyword REMA.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Let's take a look then at the number 17 story, and Nepal finding itself in the headlines for some rather tragic reasons. There have been some mass protests in Nepal, and before we share more about it, let's see how it was covered at the New York Times. And for those of you who are not able to watch the stream, I'll provide a little commentary on what this video shows us, because it starts with buildings ablaze in Nepal. So hundreds of thousands have joined protests in Nepal right now. Let's see if we can get some audio behind this. Here we go.
Setting fire all over the capital, major government buildings being broken into a flame. The prime minister quit, fled the country. All of this seemed as if it began with a simple protest by young people, what they're calling the Gen Z or Gen Z protest, about the government's decision to shut off 26 social media platforms. What we learned is that was really only the very beginning of it. On the first day of the protests, security forces opened fire, and at least 19 young people died. After that, the protesters were angry in an entirely new way. But before they took to the streets, there were already deep grievances besides the social media ban. Nepal is in the grips of a terrible crisis of unemployment that makes it very hard for a lot of young people, especially, to find any work, to pay for any of the needs that their families have. And the place where most people seem to lay blame for that is on the corruption of Nepal's elites. All of their houses were burned. Many of them were attacked. The fact that so many people, so many known entities in Nepali society have been hunted down is shocking. And then eventually, when the Nepal army came out in force to declare that it was responsible for law and order, we were able to see heavily armed police and soldiers carefully encircling flocks of protesters. So as the army tries to assert its control against this unexpected eruption of anger on the streets, we don't really know what the next steps are. It's going to be especially interesting to see how this country comes out of this moment crisis.
So that is a story out of Nepal right now. Mass Gen Z protests.
Hold on just a moment as I bring up the tab. 17 trending over the week that was. A lot of people wanting more information about what was happening in terms of these protests. And as they outlined at the beginning, the narrative was it was a protest gone wrong, but the iceberg, as it were, certainly had a lot more under the surface.
Yeah, and how is this even relatable to a place like New Zealand? And again, dare I say it, some of the stories we're going to be talking about at the end of the show is that violence is what happens when dialogue is no longer possible.
Ooh.
And so that is the situation we see in Nepal right now. I also think, too, a universal challenge of the fact that any society produces haves and have-nots. It's not a unique thing to, say, places like Nepal, even in New Zealand and the US. We know about this, of course, don't we? That even though technically we all have the opportunity to succeed and advance ourselves in life, in many ways we have much more opportunity than those even only living 100 or 200 years ago. There are some who are always going to do better, and then what do they do with that responsibility? And even on this point, I would say don't underestimate the impact that Christianity has had on our culture that tells us that the rich or the powerful should support the poor and the weak. This assumption is so deeply Christian. If you haven't studied this before, let me just let you know again how remarkable this is. And even to see these kind of protests in a place like Nepal tell you of the dominance of, say, a Western narrative that says the elites are supposed to look after those who are less than, those who are less fortunate. So this is the kind of cultural influence that our faith has got, even though in many ways we might have strayed from the foundations of our faith. That value, that assumption, I mean, historically, that is a radical concept. That is not how people lived, dare I say it, in the Roman Empire or many other parts of the world right now where there are powerful people who will simply protect their position and feel entitled that if they are in a powerful position, they're entitled to the fruits of that power. We don't believe in that. We find that deeply offensive. And even for those who are not Christian, feel that there is something wrong when we see this kind of stuff happen. So what does it mean in New Zealand? How do we live our lives, even though perhaps we're not at the point of having protests on the streets? What do we do when we are in a more privileged position than others? I don't have the direct answers for that, but it's certainly something to ponder on and perhaps something to pray about.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Just noticing, by the way, a little bit of a peek on the stream in terms of the numbers. A lot more people watching, so welcome if this is your first time. Also see a message that came through from Ross saying, hi guys, haven't been able to connect with you since the change of time.
Hey, Ross, yes, I remember.
Awesome to be able to see and hear you guys again. Awesome to have you. Yes, trending used to be on a Wednesday, so if you're unaware, if you've just, tuned into Rima, if you're wondering what is going on, it's a little bit different to the Rima Breakfast Show. Andrew Urquhart will be in next. But yeah, this is taking a look back at the week that was, the trending news stories, talking about those stories we wanted more information on, bringing that Christian perspective. And we just chatted about the protest in Nepal. That was your number 17 trending story.
And we will be talking about Charlie Kirk as the number one news story. It's not something we normally reveal at the start of the show, but of course, very profound implications, I think, not just for the US, but for even those of us who've been following what's happened in the United States and to what extent that situation maps onto what we're going through here in New Zealand. So if you've got some thoughts on that, maybe your reactions to it, we've already heard from Joel today, and we appreciate that text too, Joel. But if you want to send us a text or maybe comment in the chat below how you feel about the assassination of Charlie Kirk and how that has affected you, let us know your thoughts. We are going to get to that and spend some more time on the topic towards the end of the show.
8168 with the keyword Rima. That is the way you text on through any message you've got, any thoughts you have on Charlie Kirk, or of course, if you want to watch the stream, and you can leave a comment that way too, you find it at rima.co.nz. Click on either Facebook or YouTube.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Skipping up the search rankings today then to the number 8 position, and the kind of story that I am getting sick of seeing, just quietly. We saw something about Kitchen Things, the iconic Kiwi Kitchen Things provider. It's not just a clever name. Having to go into liquidation.
Not sponsored, by the way.
No, still waiting for that phone call from, what was it, Flex Fitness Equipment?
Yeah, that's right. IKEA, get in touch, hey.
That's
Speaking
right.
of furniture.
But no, in this case, Smith City liquidation sale is in fact your number 8 trending news story from the week that was. 21,000 items must go.
I mean, is the news that, hey, there's a big sale on?
Yeah, basically.
Because they're going into liquidation.
Kind of tragic, though. These companies that have been around for quite a while, and in fact, liquidators have reopened 8 of the 9 stores for a liquidation sale. So that's stores in Greymouth, Oamaru, Alexandra, Gore, and Invercargill. It's going to run for a limited time only and while stocks last, but sad news, though, nevertheless. Very hard to compete, I imagine, if you're a New Zealand-based retailer, especially with the availability of overseas products through retailers like even Temu, let alone Amazon and the like.
Well, look, I mean, we had IKEA trending last week. It was in the trending results this week as well, but a little bit lower down. The pros and cons, right, of bringing in these big overseas companies. Obviously, not a direct competitor to Smith City, but yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, so that's it really. That they are the number 8 trending news story in the country, and what has been a bastion of New Zealand retailing, especially in the electronic sector, is going to be closing. 21,000 items must go. Smith City was your number 8 trending news story in the last week.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And now something that I thought was rare, and now it turns out it's more common than lost pairs of socks. Coming in at number 7, Blood Moon, New Zealand.
There was a blood moon.
Again.
You had to get up. You saw it. It was red.
Cool.
Okay, look, maybe we're a little bit embittered about this. If you enjoyed it, good on you. It's a marvel. It's amazing. But I can't lie. I remember, I think it was a few years ago.
Right.
That was the first time I heard about the blood moon, and it was this big event. I remember going to the top of, I think it was Mount Eden, or One Tree Hill, actually, I think, here in Tamaki Makaurau, and flooded with people there wanting to see, getting photos, etc., etc. Since then, it's like
Every 10 minutes.
it's like a bag of Pascal pineapple lumps. There's just always another one.
There's always another one. Let's see if I can work that into my vocab from now on. Yeah. I was asked if I got up early to watch it. The funny thing was, apparently I could have seen it quite easily when I was driving into work on that day.
You are up at that time.
Didn't even think about it. Didn't even cross my mind. I feel like a bit of a Philistine for some of that stuff because we get these things like, you know, eclipses and blood moons and comets and all this kind of thing. And some people are like, oh, you've got to get up to see it. I just never feel the urge in any way whatsoever to get up and go like, oh, okay. I also love too how there is a certain amount of the, you know, Christian apocalypse society who love a blood moon because there's blood moon references in the Bible, of course, which mean that, you know, the end is nigh. But I'm of an age now where I've lived through about 4 or 5 ends of the world. So
the end is still nigh.
It's still nigh.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And now we move to the first of our much sadder and much tougher to talk about stories today. So again, we appreciate your comments, your thoughts, and your understanding as we talk about what was the number 1 news story in the country up until very recently. In fact, up until yesterday. Tom Phillips. Now, this is the father who had taken his children into the wilderness, and it was a mystery that really had gripped the country for years. A fugitive father and a violent end, some saying the inevitable end of the Tom Phillips family story. Let's see how it was covered first on stuff.co.nz.
Well, actually, just before you jump into that, Andrew, I'll let you know that this coverage is about something in particular that I thought was worth bringing to our attention because, so this is trending, right?
Yep.
And this is the news stories from the week that was that we wanted more information about. Unsurprisingly, we wanted more information about Tom Phillips and the situation. And there is also a team that wants to bring that information, but there is a little bit of uncomfortability here because there's been a team that's following the family and following the police investigation as a documentary, but the Phillips family, particularly his wife, have said, no, absolutely not interested, please don't do that, and it seems like it's going ahead anyway. So that's the specific angle of what we're about to hear about or see on the stream.
Well, as the children begin their recovery, a new controversy has erupted. A documentary is being filmed about the case, produced by Dame Julie Christie. But members of the Phillips family and the children's mother say they do not consent, calling the project disturbing and exploitative. Ava Whitworth reports.
It's a case that's gripped the nation for years, and now cameras are rolling. NHNZ Productions has been following Police Operation Curlew with exclusive access signed off at the highest levels. But while the production pushes ahead, members of the Phillips family are furious. Rosie Phillips told RNZ the idea was shocking, that anyone would try to profit from their pain. Their mother, Kat, says she made her opposition crystal clear when police informed her of the project. When informed of this project by the police, I made it absolutely clear that I do not support, endorse or consent to its production. We again wish to state unequivocally we do not support nor do we consent to this documentary. At today's media stand-up, Detective Andy Saunders was asked about the filming.
Yeah, so look, the documentary follow team, any questions around that, I'll have to defer you to our media section.
So we asked the Police Media Centre about the family's objections, and they gave us this statement. We have had a Follow TV film crew from NHNZ Productions with our Operation Curlew team for most of this year. This production is not allowed to be broadcast before the completion of any IPCA, coronial or other inquiry. But the backlash is growing. The Children's Commissioner says the timing is all wrong.
I don't think it's appropriate that there is any sort of documentary being made about this situation at this juncture. As I said, the privacy of these children is of the utmost importance.
She says the children have already been splashed across our media and warns heavy scrutiny could harm them at a critical time.
We actually don't know what they're going through right now, but the focus of those adults working to support them right now needs to be on listening with care to those children to understand their needs and then make sure that all of the support that they might need is wrapped around them.
A documentary promising exclusive access, but branded by the family as disturbing.
Buckle up, New Zealand. 20 bat is...
Thanks for that ad. Jeez. It is disturbing. It is disturbing that you can go ahead with a documentary like that without the family's consent. Kind of strange, perhaps, too, that the police would have consented to something like that. Maybe they were hoping to have a record that they had done everything that they could do. And it feels like a level of executive, I was going to say a stronger word, but behind covering. Otherwise, a strange thing to feel the need for the police to initiate. I can understand maybe if you were the family and you wanted something done about that, which in this case they clearly don't. So...
we live in a content-driven society.
True.
I mean, you and I right now, we're making content out of the news.
Sure.
Out of the stories that have developed. I think this is good content, is creating discourse. There's a reason we're doing this. But we can also see, particularly within this instance, that the desire to just consume and know more information about a thing, and I just want it, tell me, all the stuff, isn't always the best.
Maybe you just shouldn't.
Yeah.
Maybe you just shouldn't. You know, I remember, for those of you who have maybe younger people listening right now, I'm going to address something that was a little more adult in nature. There was a photo content leak of celebrities a little while ago of a certain nature.
Gotcha. Yep.
And this was published all over the internet. And I remember somebody putting a post up on a social channel that says, maybe if people don't want us to look at these photos of them, we should just not look at these photos of these people. Like, if we don't have the consent to do it, why do we feel entitled to do so? And, of course, this bleeds through into all sorts of other areas as well. Now we're looking at this story with Tom Phillips, which, again, the broader story is of a family torn apart, of a fugitive father, and then a tragic gunfight that ended in the loss of his life and a police officer as well being in critical condition. We did get an update, by the way, in the headlines today that says, I believe he's in a serious but stable condition. So that is certainly one thing to be praying for. Also, by the way, the fact that his 12-year-old daughter, Tom Phillips' 12-year-old daughter, was with him when he was shot and killed by police. So this is an intensely damaged family. Children who I think, too, have probably been told a lot of stuff by their dad to kind of keep this fugitive life on the run.
To perpetuate the lie.
Yeah, to perpetuate the lie. And so, I mean, deeply tragic. And yet, as you say, I mean, I think that's a great observation. There is this thing within us that wants to know more, that wants to dive in, that wants to maybe stick our noses where they don't need to be. Why do we need to know more about their family situation?
We hunger for it. There is an element, I think, of human nature.
Yep.
That is just the curiosity that sometimes kills the cat. And I think also the culture we live in at this point in time, the ability to access so much content means if you can corner some sort of content that is going to draw the eye, that's the big goal for a lot of society at this point in time. A lot of media, I mean, that is how a lot of our content is driven. I've got to, in some way, capture your attention and keep it glued on me. And there is a detrimental side of that for sure.
So a tragic story that has come to a tragic end. Tom Phillips and the 4-year fugitive.
4 years, man.
Story. I mean, his eldest daughter is 12 now. Youngest child is 9, which means they've been on the run since they were 5.
Goodness me.
Something certainly to be praying for. It was your number 1 story up until very recently. Tom Phillips, though, coming in at number 2 today.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
As we come into the final story we're going to be discussing, and this may well warrant a few extra minutes on our post-show as we continue the stream live and discuss the implications thereof. Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is your number 1 trending news story in the country, even though the story of his assassination only broke yesterday. A flurry of searches and then of internet activity on your major news services tracking the absolutely tragic assassination, loss of life that occurred on a campus in Utah. Charlie was hosting one of the discussion forums that had become very well known for. Debate me on various issues. Let's have a conversation about, well, all matters of life and faith, by the way. Charlie was someone who was very outspoken about the impact of his faith on what he did. In some circles, that blurs some lines because the lines between faith and politics in the US is one that some can feel uncomfortable about. But for Charlie, he always said that the number 1 thing for him was actually sharing about the impact that Jesus had had on his life. But it was things like America's First Amendment that enabled him to share his faith. And therefore, he was involved politically to preserve that amendment so that he could really get on with what he thought was the most important thing. And so he was committed to dialogue. That's what brought him to this university in Utah, and tragically provided the opportunity that was taken by a gunman who at this stage we don't know too much about. Very many have speculated. There have been some news stories today that have broken, suggesting what motivations might have been. I'm not going to share those with you today. You're more than capable of tracking down that information yourself. But for the moment, I want to be a little bit more restrained on this. Very easy to latch on to what a narrative might have been. However, we will take a look at one of the ways that the story was covered. And we've decided to go with an Australian news story on this one today because I think it more closely mirrors our perspective here in New Zealand. Charlie Kirk, of course, not somebody who was as well known by the majority of New Zealanders, though I did find in my own browsing of social media yesterday a number of friends of mine posting commemorative notices on their social media feeds. So before we share any more on this, and also too, before we get to some of your comments today, let's see how the Charlie Kirk assassination story was covered by 9 News in Australia.
I want to start off with breaking news out of the United States. A right-wing political figure, Charlie Kirk, has been assassinated during an event at a university campus in Utah. Donald Trump posting this just moments ago to Truth Social. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie.
He was loved and admired by all, especially me. And now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you.
It happened in front of many who'd gathered there to hear the 31-year-old speak. Here is the moment of the shooting.
Counting, we're not counting gang violence.
Oh my God.
Go, run.
It's really graphic. Our US correspondent Jonathan Kersley is following developments. There are plenty. Jono, talk us through what happened.
Has been assassinated at the age of 31. This shooting taking place in Utah, just outside Salt Lake City, a matter of a couple of hours or so ago. In that footage, you could see Charlie Kirk, the influential right-wing conservative commentator and activist who was widely deemed as critical in Donald Trump's re-election bid, receiving listeners from millions around the country. He's been doing these campaign events, essentially going around and debating university students. And at this point, when he was shot earlier today, he was actually answering a question about mass shootings in the United States of America. This is an issue he has spoken about many, many times before. An open advocate of the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, the right for Americans to have firearms. But today, as he was answering a question on that very issue, it was a single shot to his neck that led to the loss of life of Charlie Kirk at the age of 31. We've seen reactions not just from those on the right, including President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, but also senior figures on the left. Kamala Harris and California Governor Gavin Newsom, both keen to express that there is no place in America for gun violence, and that is because they realise how big of a tinderbox issue this could well be now in the United States of America. A vocal right-wing activist shot dead. Charlie Kirk assassinated at the age of 31.
Yeah,
Carl,
more reaction
Sarah?
coming up too, Jono. Thank you, Jane.
A tragic news story, and there it was, covered courtesy of 9 News in Australia. Now, we talked a little bit about this in the pre-show as well, Josh, but this wasn't somebody that you were super familiar with until the story broke, and I think that's worth acknowledging that for many people, Charlie Kirk was a very prominent figure in US politics, not so well known in New Zealand.
Well, taking a look, excuse me, at this message that came through from Ross. Interesting, isn't it? I didn't know much about anything of Charlie Kirk before his death, but now I do.
Yeah, and Joel got in touch with us as well. And for this one too, somewhat relates to what we'd said with the Tom Phillips story and the documentary that was being presented, and maybe the restraint that we need to exercise as consumers of news, because he said, you know, I've seen the horrific footage of the assassination of Charlie, and I instantly knew that he was done. I will tell you right now that if you do want to watch that footage, you can. I have deliberately decided not to watch it. If you want to, that's your prerogative, but I didn't see how for me that was going to, he said, I wept and thought of his poor wife and children. Again, he was 31, 2 very young children. The time between the shooting and the confirmation of his passing felt like forever. Some sources said he was still alive in that time, and the whole Christian community online was praying for him. I wasn't surprised once the news came out that he had definitely died, but it felt like a very dark hour. So what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about this in Aotearoa in the few minutes that we have left in our show today? This is a question that I was pondering. And many have gone backwards and forwards about motivations and what we could do about it to prevent it, what caused it, and so on and so forth. The thing that challenges me is the universal challenge when we hear about a story like this. Do not repay evil for evil, but overcome evil with good. And again, I say to you, love your enemies. Who are your enemies today? Because Charlie maybe had a clearer sense of who his enemies were than most of us do. But for a lot of the time, we live our lives in disembodied communities with others around us who might think differently from us. But do we ever take the time to go and talk to them? That was something that Charlie did. Charlie went to talk with these people, and tragically, somebody took advantage of that openness, and he was killed as a result. But for those of us who live in our day-to-day, the reason you get to physical violence is because communication has broken down. This is something that Charlie knew very well. And so one of the reasons why he held these events was to at least keep the dialogue going with people who disagreed with him. And so you might think of this as a left and right thing. I think of this as a human thing. This is a human problem. We are attracted to silos. We are attracted to people who share the same thoughts and beliefs that we do. And as a result of that, we can end up with beliefs that tell us we must respond in horrific ways. We are not immune to this. You and I are not immune to this. There is something in our hearts that is the same as was in the heart of that shooter. Don't put yourself in the position of saying, I would never and I could never. The gospel challenges all of us that there is darkness in all of our hearts. And yet the Bible says to overcome that darkness with love. And so how do we love our enemies today? How are you going to love your enemies? The people that you disagree with, they might even be family members, people you work alongside, people you go to church with, those that you see on the internet who look very differently and speak very differently to you. Love your enemies. That doesn't mean that we don't pursue justice. Justice must also be done But how are you going to love your enemies today? Will you use this as a reason to fall deeper into your silo, as evidence that the other are so different from you that they cannot be spoken to? Or perhaps we can take something from Jesus' example, who went to go and find the lost sheep wherever they might be. And so to Charlie and his family, for what it's worth, from here in Aotearoa, you have our deepest sympathies, you have our prayers, and it has been wonderful to see the community that has started to wrap around you and your family. But for those of us in New Zealand who never met Charlie Kirk, who never had the opportunity to hear him speak, we still have the same challenge. How do we maintain dialogue with those who are very different from us? How do we continue to love our enemies? To me, that is the legacy of Charlie Kirk that we all have to contend with, and the one that I want to leave with you today. And in fact, the last words I'm going to give to Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to share something on our stream that he shared a little while ago. And this was what's been referred to as maybe one of the greatest thoughts to reflect on an occasion like this. Back in June of 2025, Charlie Kirk said, "When things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with your friends, and remember the internet fury is not real. It's going to be okay." And so that is trending today. We went a little over time, but for those of you who are still with us on the live stream, thank you for spending that time with us today. It is a tragic story. It is a heartbreaking story. Josh, any thoughts before we skedaddle?
Yeah. It's interesting, as you've already noted, that this story is so far-reaching that it has dominated our headlines, even here in New Zealand. And the risk of falling into that divide that ever widens is ever present. Yesterday, talking about it on Life FM, I took the opportunity to share an interview that I did a little while ago with atheist professor at Waikato University, because we're having a discourse around Christian charities. And the reason to bring that up was because it was a great interview to repeat, but also to provide that example of two people of wildly different opinions, the ends of the spectrum in terms of how we view the world and how it functions, that there either is a creator, that there either is a divine presence, or, again, her position being there is absolutely nothing. It's not agnostic, it's atheist. However, the common ground that we shared was the good and benefit of charities, and both of us were willing to come into dialogue with each other and speak on its benefit. And that was why I felt quite inclined to share that interview, because it was just very worrisome to see that this story so acutely magnifies the continuing and widening gap between left and right, or whatever factions you want to call them, that exist not only in America, but just worldwide.
Yeah. And I would hate for people to map the US experience too heavily onto the New Zealand one as well. I think that's one thing that I love to kind of keep in mind, that our society is not quite the same as theirs. Maybe that sense of division from having a two-party system and so on, who's to say? But that's why I said, like, what's a universal challenge in all this kind of stuff? You know, that idea of loving your enemies, man, it's way harder than you think. It is way harder than you think, because how quickly do we look for an example of, well, obviously I can't, these people are beyond us, these people can't be reached. And if you look at church history, you see people who went into horrific situations. I mean, genuine martyrdom with a smile, with praise on their lips. And yet here we are in Aotearoa saying, but this person wants to vote for X, Y, Z, and how could a Christian ever, and we go from there. So look, it is a universal challenge. Thank you for being a part of this with us. In some ways, I wish we'd left even more time to talk about it, but time did fly. There was a lot to discuss today. If you've got any thoughts, you're still welcome to send them through on the text if you want, 8168 with the first word REMA, and let us know how you responded to the Charlie Kirk story, good, bad, or otherwise. We just appreciate having the opportunity to spend this time with you. We hope we've done it justice this morning, and we'll be back again on Friday next week between 9 and 10. Taking a look at a few more.
I'll be back on Monday.
I will be. That's true. Just maybe different times of the day. Hey, have yourself a great weekend. Remember, God is on the throne, right? Amen. Charlie is with Jesus right now. We will weep for a time, but we'll be reunited in paradise. That is the great hope that we live according to. So we hold on to that today. We hold on to the belief that justice is important, but also too that this life is not the only one we have. Oh, death, where is your sting? Right? Thanks again for joining us on Trending. We'll see you next week.